All right, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with Morning Cafe. And right about now, we want to talk matters, drug use among university students. As always, on Wednesday, we have a very big panel in studio. And we will agree that substance abuse among university students is becoming quite alarming. But what really drives students to use drugs? Is it peer pressure or is it systemic failures in these institutions? And these are some of the questions that we'll be asking this morning. And there is a report by NACADA on February 13 that show that nearly half of Kenyan university students have used at least one drug or substance in their lifetime. But of course, as always, we welcome you to be part of this conversation. So there will be a number on your screen just in a few. Colin, we'll be happy to hear from you, to hear your comments and the questions that you have for our panel and experts that we have in studio today. So on Facebook and YouTube as well, we are there, TV47 Kenya, and on X at TV47 News KE. We have Dr. Rahab Gathushi, that is a lecturer at Department of Psychology at the Mount Kenya University, and Judith Ngereshi, wellness advocate. Karibuni sana to studio and karibuni sana panel. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself, of course, as we continue with this conversation. Dr. I would love to just start with you. Numbers in this report, the NACADA report, is quite alarming, and just to try and break it down before we get right into it, we see that they say that nearly half of Kenyan university students have at least used drugs, and they say 1 in 3 use drugs. So let's say these three, Terry, we have these three, one is using drugs. And they say that 45.6% of students acknowledged having at least abused one drug or substance abuse in their lifetime. And we see alcohol leading at 40.5%. We have cigarettes at 13.4%, shisha 10.9%, vapes 8.5%, nicotine 4.6%. And the ones that are most accessible, we still have alcohol leading at 87.3%, and bangi follows at 61.7%, shisha 41.2%, and the nicotine pouches at 30.7%. Just how bad is the situation, Dr. in these schools? And would you say it has worsened over the years, or is it something that is just starting?
Thank you. Those are quite alarming statistics. Yeah. Unfortunately, they are true. Mm-hmm. It is actually, drug use has become a real serious problem lately, mm-hmm. and it has kept escalating. It is not getting lower. Yeah. Even with the days, it's getting higher. Mm-hmm. The exposure is actually alarming. Mm-hmm. And I actually confirm mm-hmm. that the NACADA report is a true report. Yeah. What we see in the universities and in other colleges of higher learning is a bomb, yeah. about to explode. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Judy, Dr. is saying this is something that is indeed worsening among these university students. What would you say is the problem exactly?
There's a lot of factors to consider. There's a lot of peer pressure, number one. And we have normalized, in the recent times, people have normalized going to drinking places with their children. Yeah. Like it's become a thing when you're having, like when you're taking your kids for swimming on a Sunday, their parents are sitting drinking and then their kids are going to play. Like really, we are setting a precedent for okaying these situations. It shouldn't be okay. We live in homes where having a bar has become so normal. It has become part of the culture. It has become, it's an in thing. In fact, any construction site you go to nowadays for residential, they will tell you it has to have a rooftop bar. So we are building a culture where we are normalizing drinking alcohol as a cool thing to do, you know, as a social activity. And that translates to when university students, for example, they hang out amongst themselves, they bring some of those habits they've learned from home to school, because for them, having a drink while catching up, while enjoying a good time is a cool thing to do. So then it becomes a cycle that continues. And when things get out of control, we start saying, oh, it's peer pressure, maybe it's, which is true, but really, where is the pressure coming from? Yes. because they're learning from home.
Where is the pressure coming from?
It starts from home. And then now when you get to a place where maybe some kids are coming from home that do not practice these things, they learn from their peers. And it becomes a thing that looks normal, that looks okay, that it's a nice thing to do. And then now it keeps being passed on around. So it's really, the pressure is coming right from home. Because we are teaching our kids to do these things. Yes.
Let me just bring in now the panel. Terry, situation, well, let me start with the men. No, the women. Situation kwa ground ikoaje? You know, the NACADA report also say that a lot of women now are engaging in drug and substance abuse. Would you say that the situation is on ground is far much worse, or it reflects what NACADA is saying?
Thank you very much for that question. My name is Terry. I'm a media technologist and a communication specialist. I would say the situation is worsening day by day because amongst the students, the university students, we leave home always wanting to go find a family in school. But what we find there, we find very different characteristics of people where we are not able to fit in. And that brings in stress. So we are not able maybe sometimes to cope with other people or even to open up to other people. And mostly people find it easy, or the students find it easy to think that drugs can solve their problems. Yeah.
So Judy, what I'm getting is some of the students engage in drugs to ease in their stress. But does it really work? Does it really help?
No, most of the time is they try to fit in. And when you're trying to fit in, is you will do, just like in that are doing certain things, you try so hard to fit into that social circle. So what you do is you try to do what they're doing for you to seem cool. And then that pressure gets to you because really it will stress you out when you cannot fit in a certain clique of friends. And most often than not, especially in campus, you know, when you're in high school, you are in a confined environment, the rules are controlling you. But when you are in an institution of higher learning, the freedom is much more, you know, and you get to do things. There's no parent to guide you. There's no one to tell you you're supposed to go to class at this time. It is your own prerogative to be able to follow the routine. So now because you're not able to do that, what happens? The pressure that piles on you is you're trying to fit to a certain clique and you're trying to be able to fit into a group that in your mind you think you're supposed to be fitting in. So if people are smoking weed and they seem like it's a cool thing to do, what will you do? You will start trying. And of course, the first few tries will be very difficult, but you will try until it sticks. And then the other group will be cheering you on. Because there's no one that will tell you, no, you shouldn't do this, it's wrong. They'll be telling you, but you can't, you have never tried. Ai, unatoka wapi? You know, then you start feeling like, yes, you're not fitting.
And Dr. You see in high schools, for example, we have, they have this counseling psychologists who are in schools to help them cope with the stresses. Like, you know, Terry is saying that sometimes people engage in drugs just to cope with things that they're dealing with. Are these available in these high institutions?
In higher institutions of higher learning, actually, there are counselors. Like where I work, we have a counselor at the campus level and at all the campuses in the university. I heard you say that in high schools there are counselors. I cannot ascertain. I cannot really say that they are there.
But they are there.
Yes. But what I want to say is that even with the counselors on site, the work of dealing with the stress among the students that cause them to get into substance use is enormous. It would take a lot of counselors, a lot of psychologists to deal with the levels of abuse that we see. And this is because, like we hear one of the panelists say, the stress levels are so much. And when you are immersed into college life, it's like you find people that are all too ready to welcome you into this kind of lifestyle. And you just find, you know, the students just get into it and they find that it is easier to be in it than out of it. And there are many things that are, you know, making them feel like that. like the economic status. Let's say, let's look at that. You know, some of the students are coming from a background that is needy, and they come and find others in college that are, you know, they can avail, you know, some cash and some drugs. And they find it cool. And so they just enter into it because they want to get out of that feeling that, you know, there is lack at home, they don't have enough funds, they, you know, and so they find it easier. But incidentally now, when they get into it, they find that the stress levels, instead of getting lower, they escalate. It becomes worse for them. You know, what they thought they were solving actually becomes more of a problem.
All right. Kindly introduce yourself as you tell us the situation on ground. Kukoaje huko?
Thank you. My name is Anod Mungare. I'm the president from the East African University.
Amazing.
Actually, drugs and substance abuse is one of the major issues that are happening in the ground, especially in towns. You realize that most of the young people, especially the youths, that they want the most using drugs. At some point, I can concur with the NACADA report, because even at the moment, I'm just working on a report for honor of my word of the degree course that I'm taking. I'm working on effects of drugs and the drug abuse on students, especially from the regions where we come from. You realize that the use of drugs, especially alcohol, I think it's the most abused drug among children and especially the youths, followed by the bank and these other things like cigarettes and so on. So I think this is a serious case. And children are really using these drugs, especially the university students. We are experiencing a lot of dropouts from university due to these drugs, because, you know, drugs have some negative effects.
Now that you're a student leader, what would you say is a contributing factor?
Sorry?
You say you are a student leader, the president of the East African University. You sit at the top there. What would you say is a contributing factors to why these students are using or engaging in drug abuse?
Thank you. You see, like, one of the key reasons why there's this abuse of drug is peer influence. You realize, like, this certain one student who came to the university who is just using drugs, and through that company, the friendship circle, they end up using drugs. Maybe somebody was not using drugs, but in a span of one semester, somebody started using drugs. Another thing, these things to do with the parties. There is a bash somewhere. I'm a Christian. I don't use drugs anymore from the village where I come from. But I've come to the university and there's a bash somewhere. So you have to go to the bash and maybe someone is celebrating, it's or a party day. And automatically there's some drugs. There's alcohol, wines and spirits. That's how drugs end up being infected in students. All right. Let me bring in Austin as well. Austin, how is the situation on ground? You are a student leader too, and I'm an alumni. And I know TUC is very notorious. They have a blog specifically for that. So how is the situation now in TUC? I left there many years ago, but how would you say is the situation today?
Thank you very much. My name is Austin Wambingwa, a student leader at the Technical University of Kenya. First, let me say that the reason why we have this drug abuse, it's mostly because of the peer pressure and the stress, depression. And you know what is bringing this stress? We have the system failure. For example, look at the situation at the Technical University of Kenya. The lecturers have been striking. You know this thing, the students have paid fees, parents have paid fees, but all we get in return is that the lecturers are striking. There's no learning. So what are these students going to do during these times that they are not in class? We come again, we find that the student leaders, the people we have appointed that let's say our president, like yesterday we were addressing this issue of we need TUC to be reopened. But what happened even we went to protest outside Jogo House, but our president could not even turn up. You know, and these are the people we have elected that they should represent us, fight for our rights, and until we had to, like our sister from the Catholic University of East Africa, Captain Frida, she had to join us, yet she is not even from the technical university, just because our student leaders even they are there, but only so this issue of like dysfunctional student leaders, they cannot fight for us. So when you get back to the school, you'll find that the students are quite disappointed, because even now if we are not going to have the classes, these people, and you know, Truk is in the CBD.
Yeah.
So, and you know, in the CBD, it's where all those things are happening. So I think that issue, that the system has failed, and it needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you talk about Truk, for example, you're talking about proximity, because you say it's in the city center.
Yes.
So is anything being done now? Is it worsening, or is there a decrease in the drugs and substance abuse from where you are, Truk?
Yeah, of course, you know, there are these, as you had seen the NACADA report, alcohol is the most abused drug at 40.5%. And, you know, Truk being in the city, you find that those functions that are being held in school, we have those alcohol vendors that will come during that function that night to sell drugs. And so you'll find that alcohol is being sold, but at the same time, you'll find people selling these rolls of maybe bang.
Yes.
And according to the NACADA report, I think you also saw that cannabis is the most abused hard drug.
The most accessible at 61.7%.
Yes. So you find that there are still these people who are selling these rolls of bang. And you'll ask yourself, how did the bang enter the school? So I think it now goes back to the people they get, because you'll find that this person, while he's taking that bang, okay, there's just this group of people that they cannot be caught. So when he's using the roll, okay, the police are just there. But when you are just given, then you are the one to be arrested.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. you see, he's saying, and he's asked a very good question. So how is this finding its way into these institutions, these drugs?
That in the times that we are living in, availability of drugs is just like the availability of chai. You turn the corner and the vendor is right there. And they know, everybody knows who is who. And you see, because there's, you know, that culture of drug use is open, is an open culture. Because one will be able to recognize, they actually recognize each other very easily. And even some of us who are now maybe well-educated, learned towards that end, can be able to tell, when you look at a person, you can be able to tell this one is on something. You only need to confirm what, but you can tell. So what I want to say is that availability is not really a problem. You just turn the street corner and they're there. And like he says, the authorities know who is the vendor, who is selling, who is, but there's nothing they can do about it. It is like a culture. It has been entrenched into the system. It is now like normalized. And it is becoming worse. It's becoming worse.
And you know, NACADA also says that 18% contributors are teaching and non-teaching staff as well. So maybe you can make a comment on that as well.
Oh, yes. We have seen it. We have even seen it in the media, that children in high school are accessing these substances from their the teaching staff. Teachers have become also vendors. And you see, drugs, you know, are actually contributing quite a bit into the economic status of the vendors. So a teacher will find it easier to make some cash. And these children in schools have money. You know, these days we have well-endowed parents who can give their children enough cash. And this is actually, it makes them, you know, access the substances very easily. And by the way, do you know that some of these children have learned use from home? They have started taking substances from home. So even when they transition into school, they already are taking the substances, and so they can access, when the vendors come, they know how to access them. So the teaching staff, yes, we have seen it even in the media. We have seen some of them, you know, getting nabbed by authorities if they are not lucky.
It's a matter of luck for them.
It's a matter of luck.
Judy, we're coming to you. Lakini, I want to hear from you, Tolbert. You're from Laikipia University. And Arnold here, you're Arnold? He's saying that from the Technical University of Kenya, it's more accessible. It's in the city center. How is the situation in Laikipia University?
Thank you so much, Anne. I want to speak from what I know that happens, point blank as it is. Our institutions have a poor mentorship program. Poor mentorship program means they have centered their teaching specifically to classroom. They are only focusing on teaching. Now in a university, unlike when we were in primary and high school, where we used to learn from morning to evening, you are introduced to a new system with a lot of freedom, where you are only supposed to learn maybe 3 classes a day or 2 classes a day, or at times 1 class a day. Then I have 3 days learning days in a week, and I have like 2 or 3 days free. So what do you expect that person to do? That person has a lot of freedom. He has a lot of time to mingle around with other students. So you get it easier for them to enroll to bad companies. So like when I was in Laikipia, this thing used to happen because what I know, many students like to move around along the corridors of Lake stations because there are too many in the university centers. Because there, they have more time to interact, to speak whatever they want to speak, including us who used to do the politics at that time. We know where to get the right friends in that place. Those are the people who will always tell you the truth and how to work. So it happens that the liquor stations nowadays are not restricted. They are not regulated. So you get like the authorities, the security authorities, apparatus are misused because at the end of the day, there are those few individuals who want to get some coins from those stations. So when they want to get those few coins, those stations will be opened as early as 8 a.m. in the morning, and they will operate to almost the other day morning. So that's one of the problems. The second problem is we have poor counseling skills in school. So when we have poor counseling skills, learners are always all the time outside to enjoy whatever they want to enjoy because they are not mentored. So, you know, when you are away from your parents, away, like when we were at home, when you are at home, you are busy with the schedule of the parent that you have to do ABCD from morning to evening. But now when you are in the university, you are your own program. You are the one to program yourself on what to do. So what do? Now you feel like you need to meet friend A, B, and Z. So in a university setup, drug abuse has gone high because of the following reasons. Number one, peer pressure. Now, you are introduced to a group of people you were not together from primary, you don't know what they used to do. High school, you never know, now you are here. You have to get to that problem automatically. Number two, you are introduced to a system of relationships. And nowadays, I can tell you, ladies are the most people who abuse even bang more than men because of one reason. You get to a point where you have a boyfriend who drinks. And you know, because ladies are very weak, sorry to say this one, somehow they are weak because when you are in a relationship, you always admit very fast. So they get to a point that, you know, test. They end up becoming serious abusers. And another thing that has happened, I agree with Nakada because alcohol is most available drug because of the liquor stations and because it's more of legal business. But the serious abuse drug is banned because it's illegal, so it swindles its ways to hostels, to school, through back doors, because most of the times in institutions there's no searching or other those things. The only thing the unit and empower NIS to have to enter through the academics institutions.
Okay.
Those things, those groups can help in ensuring that they streamline on how to capture those cases, as well as on how to deal with them in a proper manner.
All right. And actually, he's talking about government needing to come in and to do some regulatory measures there. But we have to agree that it has to start from the institutional level. So from the institutional level, what are you people doing?
Well, I really wonder whether it will start from the institutional level or from family level.
Okay.
Because I think every stakeholder has a great work to do. At family level, it is very important for children to grow up understanding that, you know, there is a way of life that will be dangerous for them to adopt. And that is the work of the parent. And that is when the child is growing up at home. And then after that, it is important that now when they get to school, they find a teacher who is also now taking over from the parent in guiding this child in the way to go. And when now they get to the university, they now have formed a personality, a character. They now understand that I am who I am, and this is my way of life. And I'm not going to be swayed. And then the authorities or the people, the stakeholders in the university now enhance what is already in this child. Because if we say that we are going to start at the university level, this child has already learned a lot of, you know, ills from out there. Though we cannot also maybe ignore the fact that there are many other things that are making this child behave the way they are behaving at campus. Maybe they were abused when they were growing up. And this is something that they have never talked about, and they want to deal with it. The only way they know how to deal with it is through substance use. Maybe they grew up in a family background of violence, you know, and now they are here, they don't know how to sort themselves out. That is where now we in the university would come in as therapists and counselors to help them deal with that. But for the majority, it would be important for the parent to know that the first person to shape a child is them, the parent, then the teacher. And then when they come to the university, there is going to be the counselor, there's going to be lecturers, mentors, and then that person will now come up to be the human being that will be useful in society.
Thank you so much, Dr. for that. Judy, you are a women's advocate, and we see that women now are getting into drugs more than even the men. So what exactly would you say is happening?
Some women are more of people pleasers. And what usually happens is when you want to be accepted, when you want to belong, when you want to have that sense of belonging, sometimes you end up adapting to the things of the person that you want to be, to accept you. And what usually happens is you're not able to control yourself emotionally to the place where you can stand up for yourself and say no. And most often than not is women who get into this drug abuse, most often than not, is through the relationships they're in. And sometimes, for example, let me give you an example of just a few ladies that I am aware of that they found themselves in blended families. And when you find yourself in a blended family where your mother has been married by another man that is living a certain lifestyle, you want to fit in, you want to find a place where you're accepted and you're loved. And in your head, you being accepted and being loved is you adapting to the lifestyle of this other person. And so most often than not, because men usually, their reaction is a bit different, they act out. And for women is sometimes you would just try to look for a route that makes it easier for you to deal with the pressures that you're going through. And that most often than not, you see the way sometimes everyone will tell you that, taking a glass of red wine is good for your heart. It's an excuse to just drink. And then you will start with one glass. In a week's time, you're doing a bottle. In a short while, you'll be doing 2 bottles a day. And for you, you'll be like, hey, it's not harmful. It's just small. I'm taking it bit by bit. Eventually, you'll realize you cannot function without having that glass. You cannot function without having that bottle. And so when you find yourself in that space where you have to fit in, just ask yourself why. Because when you start asking the why, it helps you build up to the becauses. So then it helps you also just ask yourself is, why am I doing this to be able to please the other person? Yeah.
Would you say that sexual exploitation has something to do with this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the sad bit about being a woman is also we blame ourselves most of the time. In fact, when relationships fail, is we ask ourselves, were we not good enough? Am I not beautiful enough? Was I not doing enough? And that is why you'll find a lot of women will go the extra mile to do all kinds of things to be able to to fit in, really, to be accepted. And it's very easy for us to be exploited because then you will start, because of the self-blame, because of the self-hate, because you lack self-worth, you will start doing those things because you think it is the things you're not doing that is making the other person not like you. Yes.
Right. I'd like to bring you in now, Obren or Uaya. You are also a student leader at the Technical University of Kenya. And of course, I asked Austin here, the situation at that institution. Naendeleaje? Situation on ground inakaaje?
Okay, I have to confess that the situation at the universities are not at a very stable rate, especially when you consider the NACADA report that was produced recently on 13th of February. It says...
just bring it closer.
Okay, the NACADA report says that the students at the university has got twice more chances of using drugs than outside there. So you see, like at the universities, this is where people experience first-time freedom from their parents, most of the students. And you see, when somebody has been constrained recently and has gone to experience the freedom for the first time, somebody tends to, like, I want to test several things that have been, nimekuwa nikizuili or something like that. So most of the students, especially their peers, they are convincing them. So you find there are good students who come from good families, and we also have bad students from
bad families.
Family, let me say that. And okay, it's not. I'm not trying to be malicious, but you can see there are people who are raised by bad parents, and by bad parents I mean if you see like a parent that is using drugs, and a child is being raised knowing that this is like a norm. You see, so when he comes to the universities and finds a friend of his who comes from a well-raised family, and introduces him, like, you should try this out. It will give you some advantages. I mean, there is that peer influence. It's very high at the university.
Okay.
And also there is ease of availability at the university, especially areas where the universities are near markets, like Kilometer 1 in Kenyatta University. And there is also Landimawe at near Technical University of Kenya, and Luanda near Maseno University. These are the places that students source the
drugs, and thus it creates that availability, and it's cheap. You see, they get it easily, and also I can say corruption at the security guards also facilitates entering of the drugs into institutions. Formerly, there were strict measures, even at the regular checks at the hostels and what have you. But you see, we're undergoing continuous changes and amendments here and there at the university. So you find that students want their more freedom. And if at the university, if you try to restrict the students of their freedom, you'll find them going for protests. So it will be hard for them to control. So I can say it is ease of availability for me now. Yeah.
Okay. Some way it will be hard for students to control if something is done completely with trying to eradicate drug abuse. That is according to O'Brien here. Do you think that is actually something that can happen?
Okay, first of all, let me disagree with my friend by saying bad parents.
Okay.
I don't think anyone chooses to be a bad parent per se. And the moment we start putting name tags on people, we are losing the fight already, you see? For example...
Maybe use it for lack of a better word. Judy, angetumia nini?
No, there are bad parents, and that is just the reality on how life really works right now. Because as a parent, when you consciously choose to introduce your kids to certain things, because you are the adult in this situation, you know what is right, you know what is wrong, and you know, labeling. Sometimes we try to sugarcoat things to be able to also just make us feel some type of way, but the reality is, in fact, there are people who shouldn't be parents that are parents. And I'm really sorry to say this because it is the truth. Some parents will not even protect their children, even when they know they are in bad situations, because they will not make those choices. And the moment you don't make a decision, you are making a decision. So yes, there are bad parents, and we should call them exactly as they are.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
Some way that is Judy. Judy is a wellness advocate, and she's saying to see sugarcoat.
I have a different opinion.
Okay.
I don't want to label the parent a bad parent. What I would say is that they have poor parenting skills. They have poor parenting skills, and everybody has a right to be a parent. And maybe what we need to do is help them understand how well to raise their children. We need more seminars for parents.
Therapy
For parents, so as to help them to parent better. Because every parent, what they do to their children, it is what they understand that this is poor parenting. So I think, personally, I think instead of labeling them as bad, we would say that they have poor parenting skills.
Poor parenting skills. All right, Samoei, maybe you can pick it up from there.
Yes, I certainly agree with Dr. Because let me give us an example. We have a case scenario where parents, they tell their students or their kids, have a drink or test this drink so that when you go to the university, you won't have the culture shock, you know?
Yeah.
And in doing so, they think they are doing what is right, but in truth, what they are doing is not right. But going back to the question you asked, I think the culture in the university of protesting when things which the students want are not given to them, I'd want to label it as a lack of coping mechanisms. Because the comrades, when I was in university, we used to say a comrade is always right. That was rule number one. Rule number two refer to rule number one. So when the coping mechanism is not there, you'll find that the students, the first reactionary measures is normally to demonstrate or go to the streets. But do they know of other coping mechanisms? Do they know of therapy? Do they know of counseling? Do we have youth-led initiatives to fight these drugs? How are the syllabus tailored in the university? Because if the students know only violence as a means of achieving what they want, I guess that's where we lose the fight. And how is therapy accepted to them? For example, a fourth year can say, me, I cannot go to counseling. Why should I? I'm man enough, you see? So we have to deal with the aspect of coping mechanisms. You have to make it seem like it is not a bad thing to go for therapy. You're not weak. In fact, you're more strong because you're able to recognize your problems and you're able to tackle it. So I'd go back to the coping mechanisms. So once we find good coping mechanisms, that's when we can be able to deal with the issue of every time going to the streets when things are not working for us. Yes.
All right. Judy, what are some of the coping mechanisms that you would say that can be in place for those that are dealing with drug and substance abuse, as Samoei say?
We need to have continuous conversations. And the thing is, we need to stop stigmatizing them, because there is a problem here now. We need to deal with the problem. We can't keep saying, oh, you should have done this, you shouldn't have done that, because the problem is here already. So now for us is having those conversations of how do we help? Because again, getting addicted has taken time. It's something that has built small bit by bit. So then also stopping it, it's not something that you can be able to do instantly. It also requires process, and it's taking progress step by step. And with that, it's just also introducing a different culture. What I've found to be working for some of the teenage girls that I'm supporting, the teen moms, is sports activities, engaging them in something to do, give them an alternative, because really, if they are not idle, what are they putting their mind to? So some of them do voluntary work in the farm, some of them do sporting activities, and it's very interesting. You discover how much talented these people are. It's just that they don't have a platform, they do not have an opportunity. Give them a space to debate. Those who are interested in politics, give them a platform to practice it. Those who are good in doing something different, get them an opportunity and give them practical skills. Take them to this institution that practices things. Take them to those centers. I don't know if people know that the government has a sports facility in Kasarani that actually supports kids for free. You can be able to go there on a weekday, sleep there for a whole week, engage in those activities, because one, they help keep your mind busy. Then they also help you detox from whatever substance you've been using, because from there they go through a therapy session. You talk to someone. If you're having a problem, you express yourself. Some of them are taken through activities like boxing to be able to offload the anger that they have on a punching bag, because some people may not be able to express themselves with words, but they just need an outlet. So you put them in a room where they can scream all they want until they feel better. So then now they can be able to talk about it. So give them something else to do. Let them have alternatives. And I would really pray and hope that we get to a place where our higher learning institution would be able to also even give platforms for kids to be able to exercise some of these things, because some of the facilities do not function. And it would be good to just see a situation where the school admin works with the relevant government bodies to be able to set up certain structures to help the students that are struggling with addiction.
Yeah. Dr. is still on that coping mechanism. And if you're talking about sometimes students engaging in drugs and substance abuse because of idleness, and we would assume that schools, very busy place, we have classes, we have sports, we have very many activities in schools. So what exactly is the issue with this type of coping mechanisms?
Now, when we use the word coping mechanism, it's like this thing is here, we just want to cope. But for me, I would really advocate that we deal with the situation to eradicate. One of the things that we need to really get serious about is checking on the outlets, because that is a key area. And once we deal with the outlets, then it will be easier. Then the other thing that we need to look at is how deep is this problem among the students. So we need to do a lot of diagnosis so that we would know maybe the prevalence levels, so that we can now know what to do. I heard some of the panelists say that they find themselves with a lot of idle time with their hands, and that is a reality, because these days, even at home, there isn't much to do. So they find that they have a lot of free time, they are idling about. One of the things that we need to do is you know, when we say we look for something for them to do, what is this something? You know, that's a big question. What is this something that we are looking for? And I hear always we are saying the government has not done it. But what have we done ourselves? We need to be creative enough, even at the university level, at the school level, to be creative enough to engage these children. At university level, how creative are we in our departments? You know, like I am in the Department of Psychology. How creative are we to engage these students? Like, maybe I would want my students to, you know, to start practicing what I teach, so that they are engaged, so that they don't have a lot of free time. That is one way of dealing with it. The other way I feel is good, religion. I know it could be controversial, but religion at whatever level is very helpful. This is one area where we can immerse our students. Of course, we know Kenyans are quite religious, and this is an area where if we get true religious people who are not, who don't want to maybe capitalize on gains, but they want to help, we can maybe put these people into religious beliefs, because most religions are anti-use of drugs. Yeah, why not? You know, get them into Christianity, into whatever religion that will help them get out of this thing. For me, I think that can work quite a bit.
Okay. Masai, you are the president Kenya Methodist University, and you see Austin here was talking about sometimes their student leaders, while a president, they don't do much to help them in schools. But are you doing anything with your position to also help these students of the Kenya Methodist University who are deep into drugs and substance abuse?
Okay, thank you. As introduced, my name is Masai Naomi Chebet, the president Kenya Methodist University. In a school like Kemu, we don't have drugs inside the school, being a religious-based school. But we would also lie if we tell ourselves that some of our students are not using drugs. So what we are doing as a school is, our school is a total no drug zone. We don't have, I know of some universities who have like drinking dens in the campus. We don't have anything like that in or around our school. But of course, some of our students are still in drugs. So we offer a very good peer counseling services for our students. And we usually try to get ahead of the situation. In a school like mine, if you come to class drunk, it's cause for concern. It's not something that we see as usual. But when it comes to things that actually cause students to take those drugs, I think we really ignore the leading peer influence. It's not just peer pressure from our fellow students. When you go on a show like Netflix, when you watch any movie on Netflix and it's related to high school or university students, you see a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking in such shows. So that is a very big, it's a very big motivator of drugs among students, because what we see influences how we think, and we look at drugs as something that is, you know, usual. And I also think there's a little bit, NACADA has failed a little when it comes to research, because right now, I know we still talk of alcohol and bang, but we have other harder drugs like cocaine. Cocaine is now a serious drug that is used in campuses. We have heroin. Those are things that, we have not gotten to the point of saying, this is now an issue. We are still on bang and alcohol, but we have, even bigger issues that are coming up. Something else is, I think society allows for such people. If I ask any of my fellow panelists, do you know of a pedi, that is a slang for peddler, around your area? They probably do. We have these people, they are known for selling drugs, and I don't think we take enough measures against those people who are doing that. When it comes to families, we have dysfunction. There is two sides to that. We have families where the parents are very strict. So when the students come to campus, they really, take advantage of that situation because it's like breathing for the first time. So you are trying to try so many things. And we also, I'm a student taking Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery. So we rotate in psychiatric wards. So we also have genetics influence how we see how people perceive drugs, how easily they can get addicted. There are people who just need, the first exposure and they are hooked. So that is something that, people should learn about themselves. Was my grandfather an alcoholic? Is my parent an alcoholic? If you try alcohol, you are more likely to be an alcoholic compared to someone who, their genetic background is not maybe predisposed to being addicted. In medicine, we also have yearly exams, which are very tough. And in those situations, you find people who tell you, I read better when I'm high. We have situations like that. So it's something that we also need to talk about when we are talking about drugs, because some people are not doing it for pleasure only. Some people are doing it to be able to focus better on their studies, cases like that. And finally, I don't think addiction to drugs starts in university. I think it starts in high school. And there is also a gap when we look at, drug use in high school. We just assume, high schools are boarding schools. They are really constrained. They are not taking drugs. But I know of people who started in high school. And in campus, it's usually easy to know someone who is going to be, taking the drugs and someone who's not going to take the drugs. Because by second year, you have established yourself socially, how you cope, how you relate with your peers. And for some people, it did not start in campus. In campus, it became easier. But in high school, they were, when they close schools, you find some people, even with uniforms, going to pubs, issues like that. So when we look at drugs, we have to start from the bottom, and that is high school, when someone is a teenager. Thank you.
We want to go on a very short break, but I want to just highlight something that you mentioned about Nakada not talking about heroin and cocaine. They actually do, and they say that at least 1.8 students had used heroin and 1.6 had used cocaine. And in the 30 days preceding that survey that was released on the 13th of February, and they say 1.7 students reported using that cocaine, that is percentage. And you see, we're giving prominence to alcohol, cigarettes, bang, because Nakada says these are easily accessible. So they are actually doing research about heroin and cocaine, but the top three, that is alcohol, bang, cigarettes, shisha, are easily accessible. So allow us to take a very short break at this point, but continue interacting with us on our social media platforms, TV47 Canyon, Facebook and YouTube. There is a number on your screen. We'll be right back. So get ready to call in. Stay with us.
is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's mind. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth, as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50 going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe. Thank you so much for staying with us. This morning we're talking about substance abuse among university students, which is a very alarming issue according to the NACADA report. And the questions that we are asking, is it peer pressure, is it stress, or is it deeper systemic challenges in our institutions? And we have a very big panel. Of course, I want to just remind you that you can be part of this conversation. There is a number on your screen. We'll be happy to hear from you this morning. And let me just bring in Frida. Karibuni sana, Frida and Grace. You just got in. But even as we continue with this conversation, you know, Would you say that there's drug abuse in our institutions? Is it more of a personal choice? Or do we put the blame now on institutions for failing to or come up with regulations that can't completely put a ban on drugs in institutions? Frida?
Well,
just talk.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Frida Kimunto. I'm the president of Catholic University of Eastern Africa. And the issue of drug abuse amongst our students really lies between the peer pressure from the institution, yes, and the stress that our students really undergo. If we take a backtrack of the recent events that have been happening in our institutions, we have delay in the help disbursement. Some of the institutions have not been in operation, like the Technical University of Kenya. And you find that this gap that students have, maybe outside, out of school or, like right now, we look at the scenario that we have at Technical University of Kenya. We don't have students going to class and they're out of hostel. So definitely they're out here in the streets of Nairobi and they have nothing to do. And that is when you find that our comrades start engaging with these street activities, and that is where they pick up such kind of habits. Equally, I think it's a question of peer. Who do you interact with in your campuses? Who do you interact with out of class setup? Out of school setup. You find that because of the many times we engage, with students who maybe have the background of consuming drugs, and they end up convincing the others to join them. But really, that doesn't really take a better percentage of why students are really taking drugs in campus. Yeah.
Grace, how is the situation on ground in terms of drugs and substance abuse? Before you came in, we were talking about a report by NACADA which says that 45.6% of students acknowledged that they have at least abused one drug or substance in their lifetime. But looking at this, the 45.6%, would you say it's more on ground, or this is how it actually reflects?
I think my view would be the need to fit in. I feel like as a young generation, we want to fit in. We really don't embrace our dignity anymore, our principles. I feel like we want to feel like I belong to this certain space, like when you see your friend doing that, you feel like, oh, well, I can try it. Why not? It's of no harm, you see? And then once you start it, of course, it now becomes a habit, and stopping it becomes an issue. And like she said, the issue of the company we keep, it really has a big effect on the drug thing.
Yeah. Okay. Judy, when we talk about trying to fit in, Kitambo, we never used to have these things of, I want to try and fit in to look like so and so. So what is happening now? Is it a generation issue, or what exactly?
It really isn't, because when we were growing up, we were trying to fit in. Only that, I think we grew up in a much more stricter space, and I'm a millennial. So I grew up in a household where, for us, Christianity was the core value. So we used to fear embarrassing our parents. We used to fear, anything being reported at home that you were caught in school with doing XYZ, because there used to be those things. We used to go for funkies. And you will find that during those funkies, some teachers, some sports masters would be able to facilitate this. Mostly it was the alcohol then. There used to be a sachet called Sapphire back in the day that they used to sell a lot. So it used to be so popular. But that fear of, we were not so outspoken like the Gen Z. Yeah. We didn't really we would never want our parents to know exactly what we were doing, especially if it was something to do with indiscipline. But now, the exposure with social media, in fact, now the thing is, our parents, we are the parents now. And you will find that most of us, we do these things on social media. We are putting it out there like it's okay. It's like we're trying to overcompensate for something we didn't do. Now this generation is magnifying it times 10.
Yeah.
And now with them, you find that they are so outspoken. maybe it's even difficult for parents to tame them. It becomes difficult to even tell them what to do and what not to do. And then we've also found an excuse of mental health issues, which they exist, yes, but a lot of the young people now are doing things in the guise of, I have mental health issues, or I am depressed, or I am stressed. So then we give them a pass with that excuse. Because if you've seen in the recent past, there's been a lot of cases of children committing suicide because of not having their way, some of them, because of not getting what they want. And then, so now the question lies in the parenting skills, like Daktari was talking about, because we are not instilling some of these characteristics in our children. We are not telling them no enough. And the moment you don't say no, this child is growing up knowing that they can get away with certain things. Getting to campus, no one polices them. No one tells you to do this at a certain time. No one tells you to go here at a certain time. You have to program it. If you decide to miss class, that is on you. No one will force you to go to class. So really, trying to fit in now is even on social media. It is on print. Like, we can be able to see it happening. So then it becomes much more harder for them to resist the temptation of wanting to fit in. Because you see, and then we also associate ourselves with some of the influencers that we follow. So you look at someone doing certain things and you're thinking, hey, their life looks cool, it looks flashy, and you want that. You start feeling like, hey, I admire XYZ person, I want to live a life like that. So when you follow the chain and you see some of these things they are doing, then that's why we end up...
You know, I'm giggling because you look at someone on Instagram, maybe willingly smoking bang, and you want to do what they're doing. So it's more of a generational thing.
Yes.
Like you say, millennials.
Yes.
Let's say we were so keen on not disappointing our parents.
Yes.
So for now, they're free to do what they want to do.
Now they really do not care what you think about. In fact, they will tell you. You could see from how things were transitioning as we were going through the protest. Like, these are the generation. You cannot tell them you need to do things a certain way. They will tell you, no, I'm not comfortable. In fact, even in job places, I have interviewed some of these young people, and they will tell you, like, there's no health breaks. And I'm thinking, Someone else will tell you, huku hakuna mental health day. And I'm thinking, where? You know, so now they are like, they're operating on a whole different level, and even handling them now, we need to use different tactics. We need to approach them very differently, because they're making everything seem like it's look like a music video in real life, which really shouldn't be the case. And that is why I'm saying fitting in has become so problematic, because you'll find someone telling you that XYZ influencer is successful and they smoke weed. So why shouldn't I try it if it's making me concentrate more? When you look at the long-term effects of what you're doing, you don't realize how bad it will affect your life or even your health. So then now trying to fit in makes you feel like doing certain things look cool. So we excuse it, really.
All right.
Yes.
Dr. Tolbert here, he talked about learning institutions just constraining it in classrooms nowadays. But from where you sit, have universities done enough to create safer spaces where now students can discuss drug addiction without fear of being judged?
Well, let me say that different institutions will handle the issue of drugs differently, depending on who is driving it. Like in those institutions where we have proactive therapists and counselors, they can organize these peer counseling days where, there are open sessions. Like I see in the institution where I work, Mount Kenya University, we normally have those days where there are talks on issues of mental health, including substance abuse. And I am not sure whether really that is all that is needed. It is important, it is one way of dealing with these things, but it is not all, because, students are left free, either to, even when there is such a forum, they are free either to attend or not to attend. They are free in universities to do what they want. And for me, it goes back to parenting, right there at home. Was the parent, available? Was this an available parent who worked with the son so that they, even when they come to university, they would know that it is, this is the line to follow. And they will eagerly want to attend such forums, because you find that most of the students who are using substances will not even avail for those forums. They will not be available. So for me, it starts at parenting level. Is this parent available? Did they guide the child in the way to go? So that, because use of drugs is progressive. It is progressive in that it comes from your experiences in the past, your childhood experiences, the upbringing, parenting style, and then progressing to wanting to belong. Why do you want to belong? Because there's something you are looking for that you missed. There's something you are searching for, and you think you can find it in this, space. So you find yourself getting into it. So what I would say is that we need to begin to get rid of the use of substance from that baby, that we are bringing up. Be an available parent. Start talking to your child, with your, not to, but with your child, as they grow up through the stages of development, so that by the time they get into university, they are ready to get into space with a personality that is strong enough to be able to, to know the do's and the don'ts of life. So for me, it doesn't just start with the many forums that we are making. They are good, but they are not a means to the end.
All right.
Yes.
Terry, we are talking about religion being able to play a bigger factor in just trying to combat. I don't know, so for me, I would say that there's a point it instilled fear not to use drugs. But Terry, would you say in this generation now that would work, religion?
Pardon your question?
I'm talking about religion. You see, Dr. is saying here that one of the things that can be done is religion. Now that Kenya, most of the people are religious. And when you're looking at now things to do to try and eradicate drugs and substance abuse, in this generation, would you say that religion would really play a bigger part in this?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. For me, on the part of religion, I think there's a lot of religion brainwash. People do not really understand what is religion, and when we are introduced into religion, we think that it's more of, I'm not supposed to do something because something will happen. So as youths and religion, I think there's no much enough information about religion, and I don't think religion could be the real, the real solution for this. Because first of all, I want to ask a question. I want to go a little bit deeper about therapy.
Okay.
So for example, I grew up in a family where, it's an example, I grew up in a family whereby my parents are so dismissive, but they go to church. I ask them, I need something, but they are like, I've provided everything. You go to school, I've paid fee, I've provided food, but they go to church. How am I supposed to concur with the idea that when I speak to a religious person, they're supposed to listen to me, yet the person whom I expect to give me all, that is my parents, is doing actually the opposite. Yeah, I don't think.
Good. I love that question because Dr. is there. They're here to answer.
I hear her, and truly, every child looks up to the parent to provide all, like she puts it. But are you looking at this parent as somebody who doesn't have the all that you would require, however much they're having? But when you say all, it is quite, is a big thing, because sometimes the parent has what they can provide for every child. That is number one. Number two, this parent, you say, is religious, but they don't listen. A parent is not a counselor. They are parents. There are many things, but not, well, they'll do the little counseling, like they are talking to you, not with you, and all that, because they do things the best way they know how. So when we go to religion, you don't look at who is practicing. There are religious books, which are guides, and then there are religious leaders. Your parent may be a practicing religion, but they're not religious leaders, so they are also learning how to walk with this religion. So you cannot really say, because they are not practicing it right, then I will not do it right. However, what I want to say is this: if the religious leaders would be on the forefront, like I've seen programs where religious leaders are taking in some of those young people that are using substances, putting them in groups, putting them in some homes and so on, and teaching them, taking a prerogative, and understanding that as religious leaders, this is our duty to make, these young people responsible human beings in future. That's what I was looking at, that can work. But when we look at a parent, they are that as practicing religion and they are not providing and all that, young people can really fail at that one.
Yeah.
They can really fail at that one. Yes, because your mother or your father may be practicing religion, but actually they are on the course of learning what to do, the do's and the don'ts. They are also...
They're still learning as well.
They are learning as well, yes.
Judy, now that you're talking about starting from homes, to try and just do away with drugs and substance abuse. But Terry is talking about dismissive parents. How do we try now and rebuild that trust, when they go to their mom or dad and say that nilionja kidogo, but I'm struggling, and now the parent dismisses them. Now, how do we now bring in the aspect of not necessarily looking for therapy from parents, but just trying to look for a safe space,
First of all, it's quite sad that, we look at our parents as the small heroes in our eyes, because these are people who we look to them to get very many things. Now, before I respond, I want to talk something small about religion. Now, religion is very perceptive. Why I'm saying that is because we live in a time where a lot of religious leaders are really not genuine people. And what I would want us to look at religion as is, let us stop looking at individuals so that we don't make it seem like religion is not a good thing. It is a good thing, but some of the people leading those institutions have very questionable characteristics. And it is because of those doctrines that they teach that we sometimes don't agree with, that makes us question, even when our parents now do certain things and we're asking ourselves, but they are Christians. So how do I view Christianity from that spec? You see, it changes your perception about Christianity, generally speaking. But then when you have dismissive parents, sometimes I wonder, is there space for conversations in such a situation? Is there room to be able to express your thoughts in a situation like that?
No.
No,
mostly no, because this parent maybe thinks that amekupatia yote.
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to ask for anything else.
Yeah.
She feels that I've provided everything.
Nimekusomesha, umefika pali umefika.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that affects our psychological performances. And we think that we feel like all we need is education.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we don't need education only to grow, to
there's
continue
more
growing.
that you need. What I would say is that find someone to talk to, because let me tell you, the problem with having a home where you do not have a space to express yourself is you start building resentment. And it will get to a place where when you establish yourself so well, you will run away from home. Then it will become a place that you think about secondarily. You will not be considering home as a safe space for you to, like when other people are looking forward to going home for holiday, then for you it will be a place you want to escape. So what you do is you need to find an outlet, and that is why I like advising people to do therapy and seek coaching, because it really helps in terms of you being able to express yourself, and also just trying to understand life from the perception where you look at your parents from a place of it is what they know. It is how they were brought up. They are looking at life from their limited perception, from where they are. And so for you to be able to get to a place where you release them and you can be able to forgive them for that is build on your own self-awareness. Because when you start working on yourself, it becomes easy for you to start exuding that positivity.
So I have a question. In a case where I have dismissive parents, you know, growth is a certain divine order that maybe can be controlled or not.
Yes.
And I grew up as maybe as when God was creating me, he was creating me to be an extrovert. But due to the experiences I find with my parents, I grew up to be an introvert in such a way that I cannot be able to open up to someone. Now, how am I supposed to open up to a therapist?
Yeah. Now, there are good books that can really help in terms of understanding about self-awareness, because again, there's so much power in your subconscious mind. It is what you feed your mind that you're able to exude out there. And also, remember, growth is progressive. And as you're growing up, you will get to a place where you will have relationships. And whatever relationship you had with your parents and in an environment where you grew up from is what you will be projecting out there, because that is the only thing you know. So then, understanding yourself from a place of learning that self-awareness and also being able to feed your mind so that your subconscious mind can be able to keep reminding you of what not to do. Because again, from the experience of the parenting setup you're coming from, you know what you don't want to do when you become a parent. You know what you don't want to do for your children. Now, before you get there, because again, the power of the subconscious mind, your mind will keep reminding you, see, your parents used to do this, so you also need to do the same. So work on reading. Books help. They really help a lot. I could recommend some books later on. There's a lot of books that you can be able to read, and also a lot of good podcasts you can listen to of people who've gone through the same experiences. They've gone through abusive parents, dismissive parents, but they've turned out so well. They've become better parents themselves. And in that, they've also become better counselors.
So kidogo, before I finish, I'm asking, before I knew about reading books, right now I used to read books. I used to listen to podcasts. But before I knew before I knew I can get a solution in listening to podcasts and reading books, it was nilikuwa nishapita 22 years. So I'm asking, what is the solution for other people who might be experiencing the same things? Like, how am I? Like, I took a very long time for me to realize that there's something like reading books. Now people who are having similar experiences, how are they supposed to know that? Maybe they even don't know. They even don't know that there's something like reading books. Wanafaa kujuaje?
Sometimes when you the internet has helped in a greater way, and Daktari will bear me witness. Sometimes just Google. You can even Google, like, how do I deal with XYZ, and it will give you 1,000,001 solution. Now just sift through that, because the thing is, sometimes you have to go through certain things for you to realize you need something. Because had you not gone through that, you would have never gotten to a place where you thought, I can't talk to a counselor, I can't go for therapy, but I can be able to read books. And then it helps you build on that confidence to become now extroverted again. Because when you keep so much inside, you build resentment from within. You become a hateful person, you become bitter. And let me tell you, the sad thing about life is eventually you will have an outburst. Something will trigger you.
So I should first of all suffer so that I know.
No, sadly,
you learn from your experiences.
Not necessarily, but thirdly, the reality of life is we learn through the things that we have gone through. So yes, you will suffer for you to learn something, unfortunately.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's now go to that corner. Manake Terry, but we thank you. Umekuwa voice to the people. Arnold, do you have something to say? Is it Arnold? Austin? Austin, you have something to say? All right. Maybe before we get into, you have something to say? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, okay. I've heard of religion. I think religion is there to guide us so that we can behave well, and if we follow the religion, I think we are good to go, because okay, I don't think there's another big deal about it. Yeah, but then I think also Daktari talked of youth forums. Okay, there are those forums for guiding and counseling. Personally, I know some individuals who are running programs that because they were even student leaders are in the campus setting, so they understand the problems that the student leaders, the students in that university are going through. You people like maybe Fred Mokua, like Evans or Sapiri. So they are running programs. That's why maybe you'll find some of us in some programs that maybe we could not maybe reach there. But again, okay, because of time, maybe we won't get another chance. Let me first say that let's just make the system work. And also thank Captain Frida. As I told you, she's the one who came all the way from where? From her university.
Oh, she's the one?
Yes.
Okay.
To come and support the Truk students in their demos. And it's very unfortunate that the president himself, Nabangi, could not turn up. It's so saddening. And students are not learning, depression, stress, and that's what is leading to drug abuse among students.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Now that we're talking about sometimes people get into drugs because of friends, and this is a very safe space. Usually on Wednesday, we do not judge. We just listen and we learn as well. So has anyone here ever been pressured maybe to give in to, let's call it the devil for lack of a better word? Mtu anakuambia onja tu kidogo, yeah? But to sawa, and have you fallen into that pressure? Anyone? O'Brien, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, before I answer your question, let me narrow back to Terry's question towards Judy. No, about the parental skills.
Okay.
Consider a scenario whereby a child has been raised by strict parents. He doesn't get to interact with other people. Like the only time you're leaving the compound is when you're going to church or you're going to school. So you have grown. The only people you interact mostly are your parents. And these parents are not there like throughout. They often go to work because, you know, they have to fend for your fees and the things are escalating a lot. So the first people you're coming to interact is at the campus. Because you can imagine you've been raised in an enclosed compound, for example, just for example. And then from there, you're going to a boarding school. It's an enclosed compound. You interact with teachers and friends. These are just the same people you're interacting with. And when you're coming to the university, the first people you meet, these are the people using the drugs. And they have to they'll mislead you. They'll tell you that just try a little bit and you'll see the experience. I remember when I was back in high school, I was almost tempted that when you smoke a little bit of bang, you'll be very good at maths. And thanks to the strictness of not strictness, but the good parental skills of my parents, I understand the effects of drugs. They taught me when I was still young. But now consider this scenario where the parents is not there like full time. He's going to work. We have got parents who are, during the day, they're businessmen. At night, they're soldiers or watchmen. So you don't have time for your kids. You don't have time to sit them down and talk to them as your kids. You tell them these are the effects of bang, these are the effects of alcohol. And when you go there to the to campus, now there's this person, maybe a student leader also, who is coming to you and telling you that, you know, when you test alcohol, you feel free, like. Okay, for example, she would say that she was formerly an introvert.
Yeah.
Now you fear speaking in
formerly
front of...
an extrovert.
Extrovert?
Yes, forced to be an introvert. Yeah.
Okay, now consider a scenario where somebody is an introvert and cannot talk in public, for example. And now you have got that dream of being a leader, but you have got that stage fright. You cannot even stand in front of people and speak. And there's this student leader coming to you and telling you that if you just take a little bit of alcohol, you'll have that courage and you won't even take care. You just go there and speak out your things. I can say it starts from parental skills.
Yeah.
The
So,
way you raise
so
your
you do
kids.
agree with the Daktari here?
Yeah, I really agree with Dr. Ari.
Uh-huh.
It starts back from the way you're raising your kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you give them that attention, if you give them that guidance when they're still young, they will grow up and they will understand the effects of these things. And then there's this issue, say that you find books and online materials. Unfortunately, there are some people who come from the villages, and it's so hard to access these things. So it's just the parents. Yeah, thank you.
All right. But I asked the question if anyone has fallen into that pressure of drugs. I just want to know how you coped with it. No, we won't crucify you. Anyway, if there's no one. Daktari, maybe now to ask, you know, we've had cases where a lot of people have dropped out of school because of substance abuse.
Yeah.
Has there been cases where somebody has done very, very well dealing with drugs and also school? It usually gets to a point where now one cannot do it anymore, right?
Let me say that I have had clients, because I also practice, I'm a clinical psychologist. I have had clients who have who started taking the drug of choice at high school, progressed to university. Like one of my clients went to this very prestigious high school because they had done very well in their in their primary school, so they progressed to this prestigious high school. Went to top university. They were still taking their drug of choice, and they passed. Actually, they had first class. This was my client. So they had a first class honors, and then they got a job. But when they got to this job, one of the prestigious jobs, and they started working, a time came when the drug got the better of them. They couldn't keep the job. They had already gotten married. They couldn't keep the family. And by the time they came for therapy, they were a mess. They couldn't keep jobs. Actually, I think he was in his third job. He had lost his family. And what I want to say is that it may look like you're making it, and it is okay taking that drug of choice, but a time comes when, the tolerance level, becomes, a little bit too much. You cannot be able to, to go on. Life stops for you. Yeah, so though it may look like it is okay to take that little or much of what you normally love to take, you can never get away with the drugs. A time will come when it will just put you down.
All right. Frida, I want us to now talk about, we were talking about accessibility. Some have money, now they can easily access drugs. But would you say it's, because I've seen people who use drugs and they're not well off. So is it that there is accessibility to those that supply these drugs? Or they make them themselves? Is money a factor?
Yes, there's an aspect of accessibility to these drugs to the students and the youths out here. But it's a question of how often do we remind them that we should not use these drugs. For instance, in our campuses, we find that there's some areas, not all campuses, some, they have areas where students can easily access these drug dens, but it's a call to different bodies, like the students themselves, the student bodies, the administration from these schools and institutions like NACADA, to find it a responsibility to always put up programs, activities that constantly remind these students that we should not use these drugs. a good picture that I think we can bring is you see whenever we have orientation of these students annually, say, we can always have activities or events that speak against drug and substance abuse. The moment we have this on a regular basis, it will be a constant reminder to the students in our facilities that we should keep off drug and substance abuse, because I mean we cannot tone down accessibility of drugs to zero. Because I mean, you see, we have alcohol companies, and this is business they do, and they say above 18. So students think that the moment you're 18 and above, you can access these drugs, you can use these drugs. So we can only tone it down gradually. We cannot close it off 100%. Yeah.
I think I want to interject before the next speaker speaks. Money is a factor when it comes to drugs.
Okay.
But not a factor to every person. You know, when we're in university level, a number of those who abuse drugs don't have money. I can tell you it is easy to access a drug than food. You know, in a university setup, you can go to the club and hang out there. Somebody will come who has money and he call you a bogey, you come and drink. But accessing food is hard. That's why when I was a student leader, I introduced what we call Charity Week. In every semester, I could call, we go to the governor, we call other stakeholders to get food for the learners, because they are easily accessing drugs, but they cannot access food. So that was a problem by that time. I want to go back to the region, what we were talking about the region. The region has failed us because majorly our region in Kenya, let's be practical when we speak, it's more of political orientation ground than other things that affect us as common manage. They can easily interject when it comes to political affairs, but when it comes to drugs, you will never see them speaking. They will all hold the press each and every day to talk about politics. They can stop you in the podium when you speak because of politics. But when it comes to what affects us directly, they cannot address. I've never seen any religious leader in Kenya who is addressing the drug problem in the university levels. I think it's high time we as comrades and other people above us to do a better thesis on how to handle this issue of drug. Another thing I want to talk about is parenting. You are talking strongly about parents, but I want to open up a bit. It's not only about parents, but the community setup. How the surrounding is, where you are raised, matters a lot. Your parent can try to bring you up in a better way, but if the setup is not accepting, you will always fall to that trap. I can use a quick example of our cabinet secretary of education right now, who we have. Before he became a cabinet secretary for education, he used to have a foundation where he could come, teach us about drug effects, raise a lot of money, 5 million, 10 million, to fund students in secondary and university education. That's what many people don't know. So that thing used to make us feel like there's an importance of education, because he used to come and tell us, you know, I went to a very poor school, the background, you know, the way I came to where I am. So we could be motivated. So such a kind of environment will always change the perception of learners. And another thing I want to talk and add on what Dr. said, what can institutions do now to change the perception on the drug ground? Number one, you know, our staff, university staffs, maybe they feel that they're not paid enough. So they know we have a big population of learners who can be our market for alcohol and those things, so that we make more money. So that one has greatly affected their learning. Now we used to have what we call, and I think it's there, what we call work study, where those learners who are not doing well, they can be enrolled in the system. Now, if it's better, they can expand this work study. Instead of the way they used to do in a semester way, they can break it down to like a weekly basis. They interchange learners, you know, you apply the interchange so that you are equipped to the system where you are busy. Secondly, we introduced a league, a football league in the university, where we used to do it on Saturday and Sunday. And it was entirely student-centered. Not even an institution used to key in even a coin. This is a problem that needs to be countered. Bring that thing as a school-based thing where an institution comes in, supports it, make it even be in a weekly basis from Monday to Friday to Sunday, because at the end of the day, if a learner finishes classes and they have nothing to do, they are enrolling in other things that are not okay. Let me now talk about the things, activities that were happening in school that are not done in the right way.
In 30
During my
seconds.
leadership, we introduced the radio station in our university. This radio station was launched by the ministry. But up to date, as I speak, learners who are studying media, they are not given the platform to work in the media station. You will always find them in the corridors outside there, instead of engaging them in a practical work. We have big farms like in my institution which are lying bare lands, involve them in doing practical agricultural skills, bring out better things that can help learners from being able to much. Thank you so much.
Hold your microphone. It's okay. Grace, now would you agree that as students now, they can be part of the solution to combating drugs and substance abuse? Students now, do you believe that you play a role in also just eradicating drugs and substance abuse?
Yes, we do. One, I love what she said about self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's good to be aware of who you are, where you come from, your background. It's good to also understand your home. Like, for example, I'll talk about at home. You find your dad is a drunkard, and so with time you pick it up. So it's good for you to trace back to your roots and get to understand where did I actually get this, and you as a friend also, what do you do to help your friend? You know, it's about me looking out for the other person. It's about me being accountable for my friend, right? If I see them drinking and I don't like it, it's up to me to actually tell you, hey, can we engage in something more,
constructive?
Yes, rather than drinking yourself out. It's really not healthy. It's about us. It's about us being aware of ourselves, where we want to go. It's about us being aware of our community, us being aware of our goals. And I think when you're focused and more self-driven, such things will not show as much as they do right now. The fact that we're so idle is also,
Yeah, contributing.
Yes, a lot.
All right. Samoei, how can now students engage actively in anti-drug campaigns?
Okay, first of all, briefly, let me use a sociological perspective. In sociology, we have three perspectives. We have the functionalist perspective by Emile Durkheim. We have the conflict, and then we have the symbolic. I'll want to use the functionalist perspective because in a society, the functionalist perspective is like a tree or like the body of a human being. We have the head, we have the hands, we have the legs, we have the fingers. When the nail is not working or when your hand is painful, you'll find that the hand might be small, but it will affect the general workings of the body. So, as a student and as the youth, we cannot really say it will be incumbent upon us ourselves. The society has a role to play.
Yeah.
The students will have a role to play. The churches have a role to play. It is a multifaceted effort. But for the youths, like my friends have said, we can engage in co-curricular activities. We can engage in talks like the way we've talked of eradicating coping mechanisms. It's a broad topic, which I'm even confused on what point to talk about and what not to talk about.
Yeah.
But I feel it's about that time that we start talking about it. It's about that time that we take seriously the issue of drugs.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, the future generation, which you were saying, is here, won't be here. And the Vision 2030 won't be achieved unless we, the youth, come together.
We come together.
And do it.
Okay. Arnold, how can now the students engage actively in anti-drug campaigns in 30 seconds, please?
I think we have talked so many of the measures we can do to keep away with drugs and drug abuse. But you see, this is a serious issue which needs multi-pronged ways of solving it. You see, Like, for example, I can pose a question to our doctor. Like, for example, you see, in drug abuse, there is what we call physical dependence and psychological dependence, you see. So sometimes it's easy for those who use drugs to avoid physical dependence. But for psychological dependence, that's where the difficulty comes in. That's where the challenge comes in. So as leaders, the student leaders, or rather the youths, what we can do to keep away with this drug abuse, especially in universities and colleges. You see, like, we have talked about engaging in extracurricular activities. We have talked about parental involvement, but we haven't talked about rehabilitation. I'm wondering, this my friend in the campus, in high school, he was using drugs. He was spotted when he was in Form 2. Form 3, Form 4 was in rehabilitation school. Up to now, he's not even really using drugs. He actually is a pioneer for the drugs, against the drugs, you see. So, like, rehabilitation is one of the things that we need to do as maybe the schools or the government. Let's have rehabilitation centers. The moment they are spotted, because remember, it's all about addiction.
Arnold, you've eaten in. You're eating into Masai's time. Masai, in 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll be.
Now, how can we engage as you as students now in combating drugs?
Okay, something that we have tried to do, like in my school, we have a new student business center. So basically, it's stalls that we are just giving to students who want to sell clothes, who want to sell shoes, who want to do salon work. We are empowering students. Sometimes when we talk about co-curricular, we have to think of campus students. We are not going to have a whole university students, coming to do maybe a debate, or we have to engage them in the ways that they want to be engaged. Also, NACADA can involve students or active students directly. It's very hard. When I leave university, I will not be very in touch with what's happening there. So I might not know. I might give measures that would have helped when I was in school, but times are always changing. So involve active students. When you want to even take things like statistics, because you might have statistics that are maybe a bit wrong because of the people who are actually taking those statistics. And finally, I think bars and clubs should be moved from schools. As much as we are 18 years old and we are old enough to choose whether to drink or not, we can move them away from the schools as a measure. Thank you
so much, Masai. Now, Dr. final remarks as we close.
My final remarks, I would want to say that if we are going to deal with the menace of substance use, which is so serious. By the way, I went to a rehabilitation center, I found a 12-year-old. So it is that serious. This has to be taken in by everyone. It is a no-route problem. So the whole society needs to take their part. It is multifaceted, like he said. The parents who take their part, the teachers, the counselors, the religious leaders, all of us, we need to take our place, play our part, deal with the menace head on, not bury our heads in the sand. We must understand that this is a problem, and if we all take our place, we can be able to deal with it. The issue of bars and the clubs, times and all that needs to be properly regulated.
All right.
Yes.
Judy, maybe in 30 seconds, tuombe director 30 seconds peke yake.
Okay. Really, we need to have a conversation, and this conversation needs to get going. We need to talk to one another, and more importantly for the students, let's try and look for accountability partners. It helps. If you cannot be able to talk to someone, right, journaling kind of helps you relieve the pressure of what is disturbing you. Let's have those conversations. If you're seeing your friends falling, please talk to them. Talk to them. It always helps to feel like someone sees you. It helps to feel like someone hears you. Talk to your colleagues.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Rehab Gathushi, lecturer, Department of Psychology at the Mount Kenya University, and Judith Gereshi, wellness advocate, as well as our panel of very great minds for being here in studio for us. That brings us to the end of this conversation and to the end of Morning Cafe. Thank you so much for staying with us from 6 a.m. up until now. Good morning and see you tomorrow.